Right, hello. And as Sam mentioned, we're just going to push on with this theme of how we, maximise the efficiency and effectiveness of cross-media planning, and in particular how we cope with all these new platforms and services as they're added and as they become more important, and how we understand the deduplicated viewing, especially. Unfortunately, Eleanor Marshall at Group M had a commitment she just couldn't get out of this afternoon, so she sends her apologies. But we've got more than enough to dive into, and it gives us a chance to go a little bit deeper with some of the points. So what I'd like to do is for each of our panellists in turn, as we go down the line, just to introduce yourself again, but tell us a bit more about your roles, and then also just sort of tell us where you think we are as an industry in terms of our ability to understand the sort of the contribution that each new platform and streaming service or CTV offer adds to the AV mix when we add them. And, do we have a sufficient visibility of, deduplicated audiences that, investment can flow if audiences have already moved, or is any money being left on the table because we just don't have that visibility? So, Nicola, you go first.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicola Westwood. I'm Head of AV Planning at which means that I'm responsible for the strategy, the AV strategy of all of the IPG clients within essentially, I do holistic AV planning. Where are we in the industry at the moment? I think we are in a good place. Progress is being made with the data that we have available to be able to analyse and measure. I think we have really sophisticated planning capabilities, so the data and the expertise that we have to be able to plan our AV campaigns. But I think where we're seeing a greater challenge is in the measurement of those AV campaigns, and that's a lot slower to keep up with the pace of the changing complexity of the viewing and the AV landscape. And therefore, I think to an extent that probably is leaving some money on the table in the AV landscape, because there's a lot more that the AV channels can be more effective than maybe they're currently able to demonstrate, and that money is therefore being spent in other channels which can maybe show or demonstrate the results of using them a lot quicker.
Okay, great stuff. Okay, Sarah?
Hi everybody, I'm Sarah Jones. I'm Director of Planning at Sky Media. My title's slightly weird because I look after our comm strategy and our creative teams, but I'm a planner by trade, so I spent 20 years in agencies before I came to Sky Media, and I spend quite a lot of time just kind of thinking about, again, similar holistic planning. How do we package up everything we have in a coherent, holistic way for advertisers, through the agencies that we work with. God, where are we now? I think we've made loads of progress in this space over the last few years. We've, from a Sky perspective, we developed C-Flight, which was, and I didn't do Jeff's in the room, who was much more involved in it than I was, but it was years in the making, and the measurement points Nicola's, as Nicola mentioned, it will take time to catch up because it's really hard. We're working with households and individuals, we're working with impacts and impressions. There's now a massive range of different providers out there who are, unsurprisingly all trying to come up with their own solutions and ways of measuring things. So I felt, I think there's a few things that still need to happen in order to make it better. We've heard from Barb and Origin already, so there's kind of centralised bodies they're working on it. But I think from a planning perspective, we need more consistency. So we need everybody to be working with the same audiences. Just for a start, there's so many different definitions of audiences all over the place. Let's start with consistency of definitions. We also need a level of consistency around quality data. So the quality of data varies wildly from one provider to another. And again, without having an optimal standard of data, we're never going to get to good data to go into decent planning and decent measurement. And then we all need to work together. We've worked really closely with ITV and Channel 4 on C-Flight, which has now obviously been handed over to Barb to look after. Across ThinkBox, we work with some of the SVOD services as well. So there's more collaboration happening, but clearly there's a very, very long list of video providers out there that are in, people are buying with, that need to kind of be part of a connected ecosystem.
Okay, and just very quickly, is it fairly easy for you to get a media buyer to buy into some of your other stuff, like your digital audience extensions, etc.? Do you have the sort of the deduplication insights that it's not a problem convincing them to sort of buy some more from you?
We're quite fortunate at Sky that because we've got a streaming platform, a linear platform, a VOD platform, digital platform, and so that gives us a really good umbrella view across all of those different areas. And from a Sky perspective, we can connect all of those things together. Again in a deduplicated way, in a deterministic way, which is what agencies and their clients are looking for. And so I think we're relatively lucky, but also I'm very conscious, having kind of come from the outside in, that doesn't apply across the whole industry yet, and so still need to add the Sky stuff to everything else that is out there.
Yeah. Okay, Chris.
Yeah, hello, my name is Chris Hock. I'm a VP of monetization at WhaleTV. WhaleTV is one of the leading independent connected TV operating systems. So we power about 43 million TVs, monthly active TVs around the globe, almost close to 200 different countries. I would say kind of where are we in the state of the market? I'd answer it a couple different ways. It obviously varies by region. We are in this conference and in USA very, I'd say, mature markets and have challenges but opportunities working with data. Some other regions are less mature and still growing. So I think there's opportunities for some of these emerging markets, maybe in LATAM, MENA, and so forth, to start taking more advantage of some of the processes and tools that we have in the more mature markets. And then I also think in connected TV, there may be a little bit more opportunities, both with the data that we get, census level data collected through the TVs, as well as formats that maybe are not fully utilized yet. Maybe some more growth there.
Okay, and WhaleTV was called Sazen until last September, is that right? And then you rebranded, and within Sazen there was Foxum, which was a connected TV platform. So, I mean, are you a kind of like a competitor to Samsung Ads? For anyone that doesn't know you, sort of LG Ad Solutions, is it that sort of ecosystem of TV OS, user experience, some content and some advertising capability?
Yeah, so good thing. We've been in existence for 15 years, but we've really switched, mostly focused on technology for connected operating systems. We've recently switched our focus to more of a, now that we have these wonderful footprint of TV out there, how do we monetize it? So we switched our focus there. I would say we're not so much competitors with the LGs and Samsungs and so forth. They are the ones actually selling the TVs. We sell, our customers are the 400 other TV brands that don't have enough resources to go make their own full-featured operating system, get content, get advertising in place. So we'll go to them with a full turnkey package, a connected TV operating system that will fit in their BOM, and they can incorporate Whale OS or 10, our leading operating system, into their TVs, ship it worldwide, and then we will help them share revenues with the monetization capabilities back to the TV manufacturer. So give them more margin than just their $1 initial margin on the sale, and get them skin in the game afterwards.
Okay. Right, so Nicola, let's talk about the SVOD ad tiers, like especially the majors that have kind of arrived in the last few years, and what difference has that made to your AV planning, and how do you incorporate them into your AV mix?
Yeah, so it's obviously, we've talked about the additional complexity of the AV marketplace, and I think that's why there's more roles that exist like mine, sort of an AV planning specialist role that exists in agencies, because it literally takes a full-time job, one person, to navigate this whole landscape. So in order to navigate this, we adopted a process across IPG, which we call One AV. So it allows us to look at all of the AV channels that exist in the marketplace, and effectively select the right ones, the most efficient for a client's brief, if they're looking to drive reach and awareness. And we know that linear TV still works. Sorry to some of the people in this room, but it does.
Yay.
And so, exactly. And
We
so
love linear.
what we want to do is ensure that the digital channels that we select on our One AV campaigns are comparable to linear TV, which we know works, so that we're comparing apples with apples as effectively as we can. We don't just want to drive reach and awareness, we want to drive attentive and effective reach and awareness. And so we adopted a number of principles that we adhere to when we're selecting the channels that we use on an AV plan. The first of these, and sort of the non-negotiable that we adhere to, is the fit for TV definition, Barb's fit for TV definition. So we're looking at channels and platforms which contain content where advertisers will feature around content that falls into that definition. A second really important one is that it's viewed on a big screen. Yay for all the people in this room. So that's the first step. That's the IPG approach to AV planning. We then we utilise our IPG proprietary planning tools in order to navigate, and we upload loads of bespoke data, reach curves, and the majority of the data comes from Barb that we rely on in order to validate the investment choices that we are making. It's underpinned by a connections survey, which is IPG proprietary, but that is how the AV plan comes together, and calculations, deduplication calculations take place. Now, the SVOD data that exists, that comes from Barb, as Justin has already said, we are able to look at using the Advanced Campaign Hub or some of our own tools. We have TechEdge and K2. We can pull reach curves for linear TV and for BVOD, which are ingested into our proprietary tools, and we can see accurately how many people we can reach on the Amazon Prime ad tier and on the Netflix ad tier. And as I understand it, Disney Plus is in the pipeline for that as well. So we're talking about the main ones. Discovery Plus, I hope, is somewhere there as well as part of that main group. So that is how we are utilising that data to make more accurate and robust investment decisions for our clients in order to deliver the most optimal and efficient awareness driving AV campaign for our clients.
So you can deduplicate Netflix from, say, linear plus BVOD, and then deduplicate Amazon Prime Video from what you added with Netflix as well? That's
correct, yeah. So based on the data, the reach curves that we are specifically putting into our planning tools, we'll put each one in individually, and then it will deduplicate and calculate an optimised investment level by channel that it recommends for us to advise our clients to spend per platform, and then it will calculate an overall planned reach and frequency target for that campaign.
Okay, so presumably you'll be very happy if they did go into C-Flight as well?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, from a measurement point of view. I believe that's in the pipeline, but being able to bring it full circle, as Justin was talking about, and being able to measure the channels that we're using in that way, absolutely, that's a real ambition.
And what about SVOD ad tiers that are not being measured by Barb, or maybe won't in the sort of medium term? What do you do with them?
Yeah, we can use our connections panel survey as the sort of underlying data to represent that channel, or we can potentially utilise proxy curves that are of the same sort of scale as the channel that we're looking to sort of mirror within that, and then the deduplication process is the same.
Okay, Chris, tell us about your connected TV landscape. So you have fast channels on the platform where you can do in-stream advertising. Yep. I mean, that wider connected TV market, just talk us through what you can give buyers access to.
Yeah, so I would say the primary driver of inventory and revenue is going to be, similar to, good old TV, right? It's like 30 seconds, 15-second in-stream ads placed in content that viewers are watching. So that comes from our own fast channel service, WhaleTV Plus. And it also comes from applications that our partners distribute through our connected TV when we do partner deals. So that's the bulk of the inventory. And then there's also other inventory that's CTV native that's in and around the navigation system. So when someone turns on a TV for the first time, they will come to a home page where we have an opportunity to display a masthead. So it's a big, beautiful, could be a display banner, or it could be a video that could have an action corresponding to a button on a remote. And that's an wonderful opportunity for things like tune-in ads or media and entertainment promo content, drive app awareness and app conversions. But we're also seeing it really resonate with other sorts of categories like luxury categories, CPG, and so forth.
Let's come to that in a moment. But on the in-stream advertising, so in the fast channels, I mean, who's measuring them for starters? Is that the content owners in terms of, audience, or have I been exposed?
Yeah, so we look at it as part of our job is a connector of viewers who are watching our TVs with content providers that are bringing content into our ecosystem to distribute. And so we have basically census-based measurements, so impression-based measurements. And what we'll do is we'll fit in any measurement tracking systems that our clients are using. So if our clients want to do some kind of a study and they have a beacon that they want to ride on their campaigns, I might have one partner that uses vendor A for this, another partner uses vendor B for this. But we can work with those content providers to whatever their measurement choice is, to work with them to get the right data over to their measurement partner.
Okay, and content providers, it's like Reverie, Bloomberg, those kind of service providers. So it's premium content, but maybe what we'd call mid-tail, I guess.
Yeah, it's a lot in our fast channels are a lot of premium content that is from, be like cable networks and content that's really geared to specific audiences.
Okay.
And then, of course, through the applications, it's a little bit of both. It's some of those still kind of mid-tier content providers delivering their applications, as well as the big brand name content providers delivering their apps.
Okay. And do you view yourselves as a source of incremental reach? Is additional reach on top of what can't be got?
I think it's largely incremental reach, and largely for brand reach is how we see it playing out so far.
Okay. All right, Sarah, there's so much we could ask Sky about, but I'd like to concentrate on the newest stuff, if you like. Well, it may not be so new, but more important of late. So like Sky Publisher Player, for example, where you can offer this sort of premium digital audience extension on top of everything else you've already got. So on top of linear, on-demand, addressable, this is another tool in your box. I mean, can you just talk us through that and what that brings to the party?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very similar principle to how we've approached kind of aggregating TV channels. So, from a TV point of view, we've got over 130 channels that we bring together into a portfolio. And, that delivers a lot of reach for advertisers. They don't have to buy. It's kind of now everybody's got a massive long line on the plan. At least we consolidate 130 channels into one line. And we're sort of taking the same principle from TV into digital, where we're distributing our content across now over 400 publisher sites. So the Sky Publisher Player, for those of you who aren't familiar, is a TV player that sits within publisher sites like Metro and Joe Media, Evening Standard, and essentially shows premium Sky and partner content within that player. So advertisers can have a pre-roll before that. So it kind of guarantees that you're in a premium environment within that publisher player. But also for us at Sky, it means that we manage, we can distribute our sports, news, entertainment content out across a broader network, which extends our reach.
So is it a classic incremental reach play?
Yeah, I mean, if you take the digital element of the Sky portfolio, about 5 years ago, it was about 2% incremental reach. Now it's about 9% incremental reach. So, it's a really good jump, but, inevitably reflects how people are consuming different platforms. And so it's a good place for us to get Sky content out there. And not least, actually, the publisher player on its own reaches about 4 million people. And we know that half of them don't engage with any other Sky content anywhere else. So that's a pure incremental 2 million.
Okay, and how do you measure that? So when your content appears? Is it just your player logs that are used as the sort of impression data?
Yeah, we basically have, we've got a panel, from a TV point of view, we've got a viewer panel of 4 million people, so enormous in terms of its depth and breadth and granularity, detail. But we also have a broadband service, so Sky Broadband, is in a lot of our homes. So of the 4 million, 2 million of those customers on the panel have broadband as well. That means we can track people's IP address, so we know what people have been exposed to on TV, and we also know what their behaviour looks like online. So we can verify the connection between the two.
Okay, and can you deduplicate if someone's already seen the linear ads?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Great, okay. And is there a role for C-Flight in this as well?
Yeah, I mean, C-Flight, so, C-Flight from a linear and VOD perspective has been onboarded by Barb, so, that's brilliant for the industry. We also continue to develop C-Flight within Sky, so now we can add linear VOD as well and add smart on top of those two, so we can add an addressable audience, and we can also roll in our digital YouTube activity on there as well, so you can see the incremental reach for a total Sky campaign.
Okay. So Nicola, that wider CTV market, so once we get beyond the sort of the big SVOD ad tiers,
Yep.
and ignoring YouTube for a moment, the sort of
Yep.
the wider CTV market that Chris delivers, how do you treat that in your plan?
Yeah, so we can usually achieve optimised reach and awareness against a broad demo audience using sort of cutting off at YouTube, using the SVOD and BVOD and linear TV. However, where the CTV is really strong in that example is the data behind the scenes that it can generate and that we can use to target some addressable audiences essentially through that CTV activity. So where we can see using the ACR data, who has seen our linear TV ad, and then we can avoid them or we can look to retarget them, etc. Who has seen our competitor ads, and we can sort of look to compete from a share of voice. So that's where we would probably utilise that from a 1AV point of view, or if we get briefs for other KPIs further down the funnel. So if we're looking at purely consideration or performance, we might utilise CTV as part of those campaigns, and in that instance it would probably be our programmatic colleagues in Kinesso from an IPG point of view who would plan and activate those sorts of campaigns.
Okay, and I mean there's a lot of those streamers, so do you deal with them individually and try and show Revry versus Bloomberg, or how does that work?
No, we tend to use like a Samsung TV Plus or sort of like something where the fast channels are going to be aggregated in some way to make it much easier to navigate, because as you say there's quite a long tail, and dealing with them all individually is not necessarily realistic, and it can be at sort of a cheaper price point as well to have them all grouped together.
Okay, so you get to a certain point where you just treat everything else as one big buy.
Yeah, as long as if it's 1AV, as long as it fits within the sort of fit for TV definition, and then we're targeting addressable audiences, for example. It would be an amalgamation of CTV channels, or if the programmatic team are using CTV channels, maybe they'll have different metrics for who they select and where it runs.
Okay, and how much of that do you need? I mean, given that we've got the SVOD ad tiers have arrived and bringing in some probably reasonable numbers, I should imagine. We've already got linear and BVOD. BVOD's growing fast. Mm-hmm. How much of that do you need to sort of get to your reach goals?
The CTV, not so much, because we can achieve that through using BVOD and SVOD to deliver it, and YouTube, we can't ignore them. Their viewing is growing, and I know we'll come on to talk about that next. But from a broad demo point of view, we can usually achieve cost-efficient 1+ reach from linear TV, BVOD, SVOD, and YouTube. But it's the tactical, addressable targeting is where we see, from a 1AV point of view, that the CTV sort of market perform most strongly.
Okay, and we will indeed talk about YouTube in a moment. But before that, Chris, just come back to your in-screen, home screen advertising. I mean, you started to explain about that. I mean, where does that sit in this sort of world? Because, it can be video displaying. I mean, it can be a sort of static. I mean, it looks to me like almost like you're bringing an out-of-home ad into the home. So it's like a nice big billboard sitting on your TV. But for buyers, is that kind of connected TV video? Is that a digital buy?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a big, beautiful buy. We did recently a campaign for a content provider that wanted to take over a whole country and promote a series that was a new episode was launching recently, and so every single Whale TV in the country for one day was this masthead of that ad with a call to action to go, launch the application and view the series. So it's a great format for that. I think the challenge though is a little bit of an awareness challenge. I think this is a little bit of a new format for folks, and making it more broadly known, I think, is a challenge. And there's also a little bit of a challenge, I think, of making sure the specs are the same across different OSs. So there's other OSs that have a similar type of ad. I think standards groups like IAB are in the early days of trying to put their head around, let's put some specs out for these, how we measure them, how we display them, and it's really streamlined the buying. There's also been some demand partners that we work with that have kind of fronted our inventory and some of the other OSs that have done a really good job selling it. But there's a lot of it that is, I just think, still going unsold, and a lot of opportunity there.
And I mean, it strikes me, well, I'm not the only one to notice it, but if, say, a big event, sports event, and obviously you can't necessarily get into the stream itself because that's all sold out and very expensive. I mean, you could kind of put home screen ads near to it. People are in the sort of the entertainment space, they're looking for the content. I mean, is that viewed as a way to kind of get in front of people before they reach events they wouldn't be advertising in otherwise?
Yeah, absolutely. We have those abilities in a couple of different areas on the TV. At the initial launch or the return to the home screen, we have this opportunity. Then we have this kind of masthead hero also when folks go to free TV, also when they go to recommendations section, when they go to the App Store as well. So there's a lot of different, depending on what your strategy is. I want to drive conversion of an app, or I want to tune in, recommend programs. There's different placement opportunities that might be appropriate.
Okay. Nicola, what do you think of that as a buyer? How do you look at home screen ads? Are they video, CTV? Where are they?
We don't currently include them as part of our 1AV process and approach to planning, but I think as that evolves, we're working on evolving it now, and as the way that we look at AV planning turns more towards outcome-based results, then that is something we will be incorporating and are starting to think about. It's not currently part of what we do or what we book, and it just depends on the campaign and what your KPI is. But undoubtedly, it delivers high attention, which is what we're trying to do on a big screen. But it's not currently your TV asset that's running there. So that's where it's slightly different to what we would currently class as 1AV and what we would book.
It feels like it falls into an out of home or a digital masthead.
Yeah, it's a real grey
it,
area, but isn't all of this, because it's all sort of merging, and it's all who does what.
Yeah, totally agree. It is a grey area here, but it is big in front in the living room, right, on the big TV, and beautiful ads. But also, let me ask, what about some of the new ad formats like the squeezable ads or the L ads or some overlays? Pause ads. How do you view those?
I can take pause ads, and we do that within our team. And again, it is very much determined on having the right brief and the right use for it. It was brought up in the panel in the other room earlier, and it's undoubtedly high attention. It's taking up the whole screen. Sometimes there's a call to action, so maybe it's measured. Well, it is measured differently, but we do count that as AV, and we will deal with that, we will book that, we will recommend that for our AV campaigns, but it's not necessarily part of one that's driving reach and awareness. Maybe there's additional metrics that the client wants to deliver that we are briefed on, where we would consider those more interactive formats.
Okay, so in terms of YouTube, Sarah, talk us through it as a media house and a distribution company, what YouTube gives Sky that you didn't have already or don't have without them, and how you use it?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the digital ecosystem that we have within Sky. So we, we have owned and operated channels that sit within YouTube, so Sky News and Sky Sports. But we also use YouTube to distribute out short form clips as well. So, and again, those roll out across all the publisher player sites that I mentioned earlier. So it started, I think we've been working with YouTube for probably about 6 or 7 years now. So we were one of the first to, certainly from a TV point of view at least, to partner with YouTube. And as you can imagine, when you've got a pay TV service that people, Sky Sports, that people are investing in, it's quite a big decision internally to take that content beyond the paywall. But we, rather than take it beyond the paywall long form, we've taken it out as a short form clip strategy, and it's massively successful. I think now we're the #1 news and sports publisher on YouTube. We're their biggest partner. We reach 20 million people a month. So it's been a really, really core part of our strategy in terms of driving growth. And we know that within YouTube, as well as some of the other social channels that we partner with, we bring in a sort of feeder audience to Sky. So where, for example, your typical Sky household will be 35 plus family, relatively affluent. By using YouTube and some of the social channels, we get to reach a younger audience, and then that kind of makes them Sky friendly as they grow into a point when they can afford to get Sky TV.
Yeah, so you can distribute way beyond the pay TV
Exactly.
base.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's our argument to clients when we're looking to include this specifically. It's that you're reaching an audience who may not have Sky Sports, who haven't been able to watch that live, and so therefore this is a way to drive actual incremental eyeballs by utilising, the Premier League highlights and clips on YouTube.
Yeah, and it's super premium. I mean, it's kind of the crown jewels of Sky. It's the some of the best content that exists in the world. So to be able to give people access to that, and advertisers the ability to advertise around it in that short form. The highlights of the bits. It's the highlights from the games, but also shoulder content, commentary around it, which fans can't get enough of. So it's super engaging.
So this would easily fit into Barb's definition of fit for TV. So it's premium, well, not necessarily premium, but it's
editorial
oversight, regulatory friendly, etc. Okay, and you sell it obviously, right? So everybody, nothing to do with YouTube sales.
No, so we sell it directly.
Yeah. Okay. And how do you measure it, and how do you show incremental reach again?
So similar to Sky Publisher Player, we have we know who's been exposed to content on YouTube through Sky, so we can essentially the latest development on Sea Flight has been to add YouTube digital inventory to demonstrate incremental reach. So we typically, I think on average it's about 3% incremental reach, but if you look at 16 to 24 adults, it goes up to 17% incremental reach.
1/7.
1/7.
Wow. Yeah, that's very significant.
Yeah. I mean, it's we see in the brilliant donut rings that Matt Hill did a brilliant job of putting together at Thinkbox and has now brought over to our Sky World. You kind of see the where YouTube kind of sits within that TV donut. Sky, I think we now deliver 1/3 of all ad-supported viewing on TV sets. On average, YouTube's about 11%, but inevitably it jumps up younger audiences.
Okay. Now I'm going to open it up for questions in a few minutes, but I want to ask Nicola about YouTube first as well. So, how it works for you and, where you use it.
Yeah, it's obviously become harder to ignore the shifts in viewing and the amount of viewing which has gone to YouTube, and particularly in younger audiences. And so we really see YouTube as an extension of, utilising the broadcast principles and channels. And so without it sort of going off into content that we wouldn't want to be around, we really try and run around the fit for TV content on YouTube. Now, that's becoming easier for us thanks to the fact that the broadcasters have embraced YouTube significantly, and that's growing and that's increasing. So Channel 4 content is heavily on there, and ITV have now just started selling it themselves, although the content was already there. So it allows us to directly buy and know that we are running around fit for TV content, and be able to give clients and advertisers that confidence. And then we are working with, so Barb themselves said that they're working with C-Views. We are working with similar companies to curate sort of marketplaces, I guess, which just contain fit for TV or TV-like content, so that we can really, you know, guarantee that we are running around the type of content that we would want advertisers to run around. That drives, you know, higher engagement and attention. Vivo quite helpfully published some research recently, which shows that there's 40% increased attention of, you know, viewers when they're watching premium content on YouTube versus, you know, more user-generated content. So that helps with our rationale as to why, you know, maybe you should be paying the premium to run in that type of fit for TV content across YouTube. But also, you know, importantly, the amount of investment that we spend across each of the channels varies greatly by the audience that we're targeting. And with broadcast continuing to skew older, having YouTube on the plan, even if we are, you know, targeting a broad audience, helps to balance out the overall age profile of the AV campaign as well. So it's driving incremental reach, but it's helping to rebalance what could be skewing, you know, significantly older. So that's our overall sort of view on how YouTube fits into one AV.
Okay, so I think it was about roughly 2 years ago, I think, that Barb started talking about this sort of fit for TV characterisation, and it's really taken off, isn't it? And sort of it's almost becoming a tool, or kind of, you know, a definition that everyone's embraced. Everybody's looking for content on YouTube that can be defined as that.
Well, because premium or quality is so subjective, there isn't one definition for that. So it's different for every single person in this room, whereas that allows us to align with certain content that we know is safe and mirrors broadcast, which, you know, we've said no works.
Yeah, okay. Before we do audience questions, Chris, I forgot to ask you about your home screen ads. Can they be interactive?
Yeah, so there is interactivity with the buttons that can be clicked to a full screen takeover. That could also be video or informational, have QR codes and so forth.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Okay, do we have an audience? Oh, fastest finger first.
Heather. Hi there, I'm Heather Bonnard. I'm Head of Client Strategy at BroadLab. Thank you so much, really interesting conversation. My question is, I think, a bit to Nicola, maybe Sarah, but do you think there is too much focus in AV planning on the siloed success metric of reach and frequency? And in a more digital TV world, should total TV planning actually be moving forwards towards like outcome-based metrics like brand awareness, increased share of voice, increasing sales? Are we focusing too much on like the old success metric of just reach and frequency?
Okay, give us 45 seconds each on that.
Well, yes, simply put, we're looking to evolve our view of one AV into a more outcomes-based model product for that very reason, because we are looking at all of these digital channels, and they are able to offer a lot more things that maybe we aren't measuring right now, and there's going to be a lot more useful, and there can be a lot more spend going into the AV channels to deliver effectiveness if it can be measured. So yes, I think there's an evolution there which needs to happen quickly, but like everything, progress is made. But
Yeah, I mean, I think reach undervalues what TV can deliver alone, because you can buy cheap reach wherever you want to.
Yeah.
But actually, you know, TV or kind of a 30-second ad, we know delivers brilliant outcomes because it's storytelling, because it's in a premium environment, and you know, there's a lot of research out there to demonstrate that it delivers both short and long-term outcomes. So I think the reach, you know, reach is kind of the first job to be done, because reach is fragmented in so many different ways. How do you find a way of bringing that together? Mm-hmm. Once you've done a reach job, then how can you connect that to ultimately an outcome, which, you know, we're definitely making progress in that area. We've got lots of tools that enable us to look at exposure and an outcome and connect the two things together. So yeah, I think reach is stage 1.
Okay, brilliant. So just finally, Chris, can we buy WhaleTV sets in the UK yet?
Yes, I'm not sure which brands.
Okay,
though.
but they're here. And other markets in Europe?
Yeah, on all major markets in Europe. So we are, out of that 43 million households, it's a large majority in Europe and large majority in LATAM and then the rest of the world.
Great stuff. Okay, well, we're out of time, so thank you very much for listening and thank you very much to our panelists.